We got a requested video from a gentleman that is, by all accounts, a alpha-looking dude, but he's plugged into some old beta fields that seem to overwhelm him from time to time when he's navigating life. So got a request here. We're going to hop right into it. He says, trying to break free from beta habits is the subject. He says, greetings. Let's go ahead and get the bad out of the way right away. He says, I'm a 34-year-old divorced single father of 4. He's got a son that stays with him, looks like full-time, and daughters are weekend warriors coming over each weekend depending on scheduling. Yes, there are multiple mothers involved. That's not a good thing. One of the things that happens to dudes when you're divorced dad and you're dating, you got 4 kids. I don't know, you said multiple mothers, so let's assuming it's at least 2. It could be as bad as 4. But that does lower your SMV dramatically. It's such a bizarre scenario because what ends up happening is you could be divorced. Like I was divorced out of 1 kid, and you could run into women that had like 3 kids, sometimes from 3 different fathers in some cases, and they had this entitlement about them, like they deserved the best of the best of the best. And you having a child in tow got in their way of that. So with 4 rolling with you, you got a little bit of a disadvantage, but that's going to change when we kind of dive into this a little bit further. I've already gone down this rabbit hole and I've looked at all your social links on my right over here. So he says, all my life I was indoctrinated into the settle down and find a good woman prison pipeline. Coming from a single mother household, that's pretty much the norm. Because of this, I spent the majority of my young life being the nice guy, being overly polite, taking their thoughts and feelings into consideration, and generally flaunting beta energy in hopes that it would net me a date. It rarely ever did. Instead, I spent my teenage years either working on my car or playing video games. It wasn't until my time in the Air Force that I blossomed. For once, I had freedom, a stable paycheck, and a level of respect that service brings. But since I was never the cool kid, I let it all go to my head and went on a pump and dump spree that carried me well into my mid to late 20s. It's one of the reasons my marriage and relationships ended so badly. I just didn't value women and cheated a lot. I'm going to come back to this value women comment here because this is expressive of your beliefs that you put women first, you bend the knee. So I'm going to deal with that more towards the end once I get to your questions here. Let me just scroll down here and we'll stop there. So fast forward to 30s, and now I'm extremely successful in my own right. I own several businesses. I have a fairly large social media following, very nice supercar collection, and I'd like to say that I'm in pretty good shape. All verified. I'm going to say he's definitely in the top 20% of all men as far as income, looks. He signals masculine virtues. He's got a V-taper, broad shoulders, narrow waist. He's obviously jacked. He makes bank. He's got good social influence. I'm looking here at your social feed, and it's full, dude. Like you've got pictures with, like this is what a high value man signals. You got pictures here with Dan Bilzerian, trips to Caribbean, and it's not like it's a photo op. Like you kind of jumped in. It's like, hey, here I am with this guy. It's like you actually know him. Like you can tell by the posts that you are who you say you are. You got lots of social proof in there. You got women admiring you in some of the pictures. So definitely top shelf. I would concur with what he's saying here. So he's in pretty good shape. As I'm sure you know, success brings women, not always top tier mates. He finds himself keeping a rotation of 6s because that's easy, with an 8 or 9 tossed in there, here or there, and a few of them tagged in some of my social media posts. That's going to happen. Like, if you were to rate yourself an 8 out of 10, let's say, and you're dating 6s, or you've got 6s that you've got dating or rotation or maybe friends with benefits, that's pretty normal because hypergamy dictates women always want to date across the socioeconomic scale and up. So they always want to be with a guy of greater value than them. So, you know, you throw a couple of 8s and 9s in there, they're going to be a little bit more work, obviously, you know, kind of the way that you've described it. I always tell guys that a pleasant 6 or a 7 is far better than a CUNTY, you know, 8 or a 9. Trust me, all day long. So let's carry on. He goes, even though the sex is extremely easy and at this level, I have just about every materialistic possession I could ever want, I'm still conflicted. I still find myself wanting a relationship, a long-term relationship at that. So, the beta upbringing tends to rear its ugly head whenever I'm with somebody that's an 8 or better. Instead of attempting to seal the deal, I spend too much time getting to know them as a person, This leads to either being put into the beta boyfriend category or they become overly attached within days. Okay, these are kind of two different things, because when a woman becomes overly attached, she definitely sees you as her best possible option that quickly. But at the same time, you're also saying that you fall into the beta boyfriend category, which means that they don't particularly see you as the highest value option. And if they put you into the beta boyfriend category, that's usually, you may not be interpreting the term the same way that I would. So to put that in perspective, when somebody says like the beta boyfriend, it's like they turn into the plow horse. Betatization through 1,000 concessions. He's being made to go to do things that he doesn't like to do, like going to Woofstock and putting on fuzzy coats on little fluffy white doggies, or going to the art gallery that he's not particularly interested in. You'd rather go dirt biking or shooting guns or something. That's what I view as that. So those two things, in my view, contradict. But let's go to your three questions. So you say, how do I constantly keep frame and not allow myself to fall into the relationship trap? Bizarre that you say that, because you find yourself wanting a relationship, right? A long-term relationship. And then you go and conflict yourself and saying, how do I not allow myself to fall into the relationship trap? Well, the first step here, dude, is to get clear on what you want, right? If you want to spin plates, and that's what you want to do into perpetuity, or maybe for the time being, or have a few friends with benefits, fine, cool. But why do you keep talking about a long-term relationship? But then the first question you ask is, not allowing myself to fall into the relationship trap. What do you want? Get super clear on that. I get that spinning plates or dealing with multiple women can be a hassle. It can be a big time drain on a man's time, especially if he's chasing excellence. He's putting his dent in the universe, as you clearly are over here. But if you see value in one of them, for example, that might be the cream that rises to the top, and you've decided that she might be a complement to your life, that's a different game entirely. Like, dating multiple women, having friends with benefits, spinning plates, all that sort of stuff is a totally different rhythm game to long-term relationship game. There's different kinds of long-term relationships. You can be monogamous, non-monogamous, whatever, but dealing with a woman on a long-term basis and on an exclusive basis has substantial drawbacks. And a lot of people would argue the payoff is not high enough, or it's quite low. There was a study done not too long ago, and I did a video on it earlier on this spring. But to kind of sum it up without me digging for it, they followed a number of couples for about, I think it was 8.4 years or something like that. It was around the 8-year mark. And they wanted to see how many of them were living in a state of love and, different versions of that. So, we know if we take a group of 100 couples, about 50% of them will break up within about 7 or 8 years. Divorce rates reflect that. Long-term relationships don't particularly last that long. So that's it. But half of them are done. So there's 50 gone out the door, right? So we're taking 100 people, 50 are done. Then you take the next 50, and then you have to determine, well, these people are still together. How many of them are actually in love? And when they collected all the data, it was only 13%. So 13 people out of 100 after 8 years declared that they still had romantic love for one another. It was only 3%, so 3 out of 100, that said that they operated in a state of, I think it was obsession was the term that they used. So also known as bliss, for one another. So your chances of being in a successful long-term relationship, in love with somebody that complements your life and all that sort of stuff, is pretty low. Even as a high-value guy, you still have a pretty low success rate. 13% is not particularly high. Or if you're looking for bliss, you're talking 3%. That's even lower. So you got to understand what it is that you're walking into. And then the other thing that you got to understand is to manage that on a high level, meaning you've got a good relationship. She's a complement to your life. She's in your frame. You deal with as few shit tests as possible and all that sort of stuff. That's actually more work than spinning plates, believe it or not. Dealing with an LTR is more work than dealing with women on a short-term basis. The other disadvantage of that too is if you go the monogamous route, is you're with the same chick basically for the 8 years, so there's no variety in your life. So to kind of touch back on this other point that you made up over here, I just didn't value women and cheated a lot. I don't know if you see it, bro, but I'm gonna point it out to you because this is what I do. This is totally sitting in your blind spot. You're saying that you didn't value women because you were out with other women. Okay. The truth of the matter is guys have been able to run harems of women throughout history. High value men throughout history have run harems of women. And I'm not talking like 3 or 4 of them. I'm talking hundreds. Okay. High value guys today, like the Jeff Bezoses of the world and Elon Musk and stuff like that, they don't. You know, they're busy being billionaires, running businesses and stuff like that. And they don't run harems of women that I'm aware of. In fact, Bezos left his wife for single mommy, the dirty Sanchez. Elon Musk, I think he's been married like 3 times, twice to the same woman. And he's got like 5 kids or something like that. One was with that mod chick that he just knocked up recently and gave the kid a weird name, AE12-17 or whatever the hell it was. But guys throughout history that were high value, they would run harems of women, and we're talking like hundreds of them. They would sire, hundreds of children with them, but they would all be under their care. Women will share a high value alpha. They prefer that than to be straddled with a faithful loser all day long. Throughout history, there's lots of evidence of that. Look up Ishmael the Bloodthirsty. He was a Moroccan. I think he sired close to 1,000 kids. So when you say I just didn't value women and cheated, that's not congruent with reality. That's congruent with beta programming. You need to stop believing this to be true because it's not. You can very, very easily be in a marriage, be in a long-term relationship with one chick. I've talked to lots of guys on coaching consults that have been married for 20 years, have 5 kids, they travel, they have loads of money, very, very successful businesses, and they run harem game. Their wives just look the other way. This has happened throughout history because they're happy to take care of the family, the household. He brings home the bacon, she cooks it up. If he needs to do things outside of the relationship or the marriage, she looks the other way. That's what women do when they're with a high value guy. So I wouldn't beat yourself up on that too much, brother. Unplug from that lie. That is definitely beta conditioning. So let's move on. So your first question was how to keep frame, not allowing myself. First thing to deal with there is get clear on what it is that you're looking for. If you're just looking to spin plates, stick to that. Don't go into any LTRs. If you're looking for a high value woman, and when I say high value, like there's just women, right? There's good women and there's bad women, but at the end of the day, there's some better ones, right? So if there's a better one that enters your frame as you're kind of going about your day and you want to consider an LTR with them, make sure you do it on your terms. There's a lot of things that you need to consider. My entire talk on the Rule Zero Live event, if you were there, was on this topic. I'm probably going to put some more material out on this in the future, probably in the form of a course with what's involved, but get on my email list. It's pinned in the top comment. It's just the entrepreneursandcars.com/red-flags. So there's that. So keeping frame is pretty easy if you just handle it this way. Ask yourself one of 3 questions. There's guys in my inner community that know me very, very well. I've had lots of private Zoom conversations with them and webinars and all that sort of stuff. And one of the litmus tests that they often use is what would Rich do, in this scenario. The other thing that you can do is just ask yourself, is me doing this, having them enter my frame, or am I entering their frame? Another way to kind of phrase that is this alpha behavior or is this beta behavior? So before you do something, before you agree to, to vent, whatever it may be, ask yourself that question and that'll help you maintain frame. So that deals with that part of the question. You need to get clear on what it is that you're looking for because you've got conflict there. So do that. Number 2, I keep a healthy rotation, but I still find myself caring too much about their well-being. Is that bad? That depends, okay? It's not bad because you're human. You actually give a damn and you're attracted to them and you have some interest in their well-being, which is totally fine. But if you're playing Captain Save a Woman and swooping in every time they need something for you and overly or overdoing it when it comes to that, yeah, that is bad. I'll give you an example. There was a guy in my community the other day who posted a bit of a field report, had this thing going on with a smoke show that he was dating, hadn't seen her for about 4 or 5 months. She calls him up out of the blue at like midnight, and he's thinking, all right, haven't talked to her in ages. I see a number on the phone. She wants something from me. It's probably booty, but she called because somebody had attempted to break into her house. The cops were there taking the report, and she felt very uneasy. He was in a industry, without giving away, that's kind of tied into law enforcement. Let's just say that. So he swoops in and plays Captain Save Woman. coddles her, comforts her, spends the night with her. She forces him to sleep on the couch. There's some distance that's implied there. But if the police are already there and a chick were to call me and say, I'm very scared, somebody tried to break in my house, the cops are taking the report, I don't know what to do, Rich, I feel more comfortable, and whatever, like the standard stuff, I'd be like, well, the cops are there, I'm sure they'll take care of it, good luck with that. It's too much when you swoop in to do something that the public service is already dealing with. She's not inviting you over for booty call. She's inviting you over to be, the beta tampon that, she can cry on the shoulder. So, is that bad? Yeah. So you have to make sure that caring about their well-being is limited to the status that they're in. Friends with benefits, plate status, it's very limited, right? You have a perimeter that you draw around your life. You have the inner circle of 5 people you spend the most time with, which would include your 5 best friends, maybe a woman if you want to invite her into the inner circle, but that's on an LTR basis. If they're not LTR basis, they're on the outside of the perimeter and you don't give as much of a damn. Okay. It's just a reality of it. You're a busy man. You got stuff going on. They should know that that boundary exists. Let's move on to number 3. Because honestly, guys, women behave the exact same way. All right. So, I'm going to get criticized. Oh, you're cold hearted, blah, blah, blah. No, women behave the exact same way. So take it for what it is. Number 3, with my current social and economic status, should I focus more on top tier? That depends what you want, dude. Again, do you want a LTR or do you want to spin plates? Honestly, with what I'm looking at over here, so without giving it away on the Instagram, there's a picture of you playing an instrument with an audience of bikini clad women. If you're dating women that look like that on a regular basis, you're good. Okay. I don't know what they are like as far as, their personalities in their lives, single moms, like all kinds of BPD, disaster, train wreck kind of in tow. But women that look like that, if that's what you're dating, stick to that. You're doing fine because that's what you're capable of pulling at the end of the day. You're a good looking guy that has his crap together. You look like you're relatively tall. I mean, you're taller than Bilzerian. I think he's about 5'8" or 5'9" or something like that. So you look like a tall guy. You've got the V-taper. You got the Bucks Deluxe. You got the supercar collection. You got the businesses. Why would you reduce yourself to something that's a waste of your time or that you're not worthy? I would absolutely limit yourself to dating higher tier women, but at the same time, they're going to have some reservations because you're a single dad of 4 with kids in tow from different mothers. So you're going to have some limiting operating scope. Maybe that's why you're dealing with 6s to 8s. All right, guys, I really hope that you enjoyed that clip. If you want to check out the full-length podcast episode, you can find that right over here. Also, make sure you visit my website over here where you'll find my supplements, the opportunity to book me privately one-on-one for coaching, and most importantly, my new School of Unplugging, which you'll find on the courses tab. Newer to the channel, hit subscribe.